There's so much hype on the internet. People calling crazy stuff like bomb, who's this guy, who's that guy. Well, now you guys know who's this guy. What's he capable of, you know?
Bakhram Murtazaliev got his name in boxing after a historic win over Tim Tszyu. He then challenged Terence Crawford to a fight, saying that Crawford was the best boxer of all time.
Any interest in fighting Jermell Charlo?
Там, я говорю, мне без разницы, с кем драться. Если же не получится договориться, у кого есть пояса, мы будем выбирать из более лучших доступных бойцов. Поэтому будет это Чарло, будет это Кроуфорд, будет это Фундора, Спенс. Не имеет никакого значения. Приоритет это пояса. Если нету поясов, боев за пояса, то можем подраться хоть с кем.
Sean Porter thought that Tszyu would use strategy and movement to get around his opponent's reach edge. Porter said that Murtazaliev started the fight with a good jab, but he was more interested in how he thought Tszyu would circle around and use his range to get the upper hand even though he was shorter.
Where did it go wrong for Tim?
You know, the opening bell. I saw Bakhram come out and pop his jab, and he did what I told you guys Tim was going to do. I thought Tim would be the guy moving to his left, circling, and using his range. And I know you see a reach difference or this disadvantage for Tim, but it doesn't matter. I've out-jabbed everyone that I've been in the ring with. Everyone that I've been in the ring with has been taller and longer.
Porter went on to say that Murtazaliev's team seemed to come into the fight with a different plan than what Tszyu had expected. This unexpected strategy from Murtazaliev, according to Porter, was a big part of Tsyu's problems during the fight. I think they came out with a different style than what the Tszyu camp expected, and I think it just started to unravel from there. After beating Tim Tszyu, Bakhram Murtazaliev quickly called out other top fighters in the division, hoping to bring them all together and win more important titles. A clear goal was to show that he was the best boxer at 154 pounds, and Terence Crawford was one of the big names he set his sights on.
Well, my priorities is to fight for more titles against Spence, Fundora, or Crawford. But if we cannot make it happen, then we will choose the best option for us, what will give us more opportunity.
Crawford was the best boxer because he was a multi-division champion and generally thought to be one of the best pound-for-pound fighters. Terence Crawford talked about Tim Tszyu's performance during the fight and pointed out a major flaw in the way he was fighting. The world-class boxer Crawford, who is known for his defense and ability to adapt, showed Tszyu what changes he needed to make to survive Bakhram Murtazaliev's attacks. The tweet said, "Tim better change up that game plan and start moving his head coming in." As the fight between Tim Tszyu and Bakhram Murtazaliev unfolded, Terence Crawford was quick to share his thoughts on social media, giving real-time reactions to what he saw in the ring. Crawford initially tweeted, "Told y'all," and "too strong for Tim," clearly indicating that he thought Murtazaliev's power was too much for Tszyu to handle as Tszyu struggled to stay on his feet. Crawford continued with his legs gone, showing that Tszyu was losing his ability to stay grounded, a sign of fatigue and being outclassed when the referee allowed the fight to continue despite the severe punishment Tszyu was taking. Crawford responded with a lol, giving Tim time to be crazy, showing his surprise at the decision to let the fight go on. That as the brutal knockdowns kept coming and the situation became increasingly dangerous for Tszyu, Crawford's tone shifted to concern for the fighter's well-being, tweeting, "A straightforward and serious plea to stop the fight at the Caribe Royale in Orlando, Florida." The boxing world watched a thrilling undercard for the highly anticipated clash between Tim Tszyu and Bakhram Murtazaliev. The 10-fight event, filled with action and energy, built up to the main event between two junior middleweight powerhouses. Greg Hackett was discussing the potential for a future fight between Terence Crawford and Bakhram Murtazaliev, saying that it would be a great matchup for Crawford. Hackett acknowledged Murtazaliev's rising reputation, but he emphasized that Crawford works at a higher level in terms of skill and experience. Greg Hackett was reflecting on the chance of a matchup between Terence Crawford and Bakhram Murtazaliev, expressing that it would be an exciting fight for Crawford. Hackett emphasized that Crawford works on an elite level, suggesting that such a fight would showcase his abilities.
That'd be a great fight for Terence Crawford. I mean, he is that level. You know what I mean? And Bakhram, everybody's speaking about Bakhram now because of what he did to Tim Tszyu, but that's what happens in boxing when you take fights.
Hackett explained how, despite being relatively unknown, Murtazaliev's style showed strong fundamentals. Hackett noticed that Murtazaliev's powerful jab, right hand, and hook were effective weapons in the ring. His assessment emphasized that even without flashy techniques, A fighter with strong fundamentals can make important things happen, he said. We didn't know much about him, but from what I see, up-hand-down style, got a great jab, got a great right hand, got a great hook, and that's all you need in boxing, the good basics. If you got good basics, you can make some things happen. Hackett compares Murtazaliev's skills to those of Terence Crawford. He stressed that while Murtazaliev's basics were strong, Crawford's skill set was much more dynamic and complicated. Hackett pointed out that Crawford brings a wider array of techniques and elements to his fights than Tim Tszyu, which is why he considered Crawford a far more difficult opponent. He added, of course, Terence Crawford isn't Tim Tszyu. Terence Crawford comes with a lot more features than Tim Tszyu. Greg Hackett was analyzing how fight between Terence Crawford and Bakhram Murtazaliev might unfold, expressing confidence that Crawford would give Murtazaliev major problems. Hackett highlighted Crawford's exceptional jab and his ability to gradually break down opponents over time. He envisioned Crawford using body shots and gradually wearing Murtazaliev down as the fight progressed, predicting that by the 9th or 10th round, Crawford could possibly stop him.
So I think he would give Bakhram a world of trouble. Just behind his jab alone, take some time to break him down, stab him to the body, things like that. Work him out till he gets to about the 9th, 10th round and probably get him out.
Hackett acknowledged that, while Murtazaliev is a tough and determined fighter, having taken some heavy shots in his previous fight, he didn't think that he could beat Crawford. Hackett thought that Crawford's overall skill set and experience would be too much for Murtazaliev to handle in the long run. He added that Bakhram got caught with some shots too, and he fell. You know what I'm saying, but he stayed determined, and he stayed on the goal. But I don't think Bakhram could beat Terence Crawford. The main event provided drama from the opening bell. Bakhram Murtazaliev, the reigning IBS junior middleweight champion, entered the ring with an unblemished record of 22-0 and having 16 knockouts. His ability to mix power with relentless combinations had been the hallmark of his rise, and many wonder if Tim Tszyu could handle the pressure that Murtazaliev would bring. Tszyu, a former WBO junior middleweight champion, had a record of 24-1 and 17 knockouts, was returned to the ring after a heartbreaking loss to the towering Sebastian Fundora in March. That loss, a 12-round split decision, had shaken Tszyu's confidence, and many saw this fight as a must-win for the Australian. Tszyu, seeking redemption after a disappointing loss, hoped to re-establish his dominance, while Murtazaliev had the chance to elevate his career with a marquee win.
Loss for you? But just what's going through your mind?
Just happened. Like, what did I get hit with? And couldn't regroup, and I don't know, man. It just doesn't go your way, and you just have to bounce back,
From the outset, Murtazaliev was the aggressor, quickly controlling the fight with his powerful combinations. Tszyu struggled to find his flow as the Russian champion applied constant pressure. Murtazaliev's punches landed with authority, and Tszyu, who had never met an opponent like him in his 8-year career, found himself overwhelmed in the second round. The fight took a dramatic turn, having knocked Tszyu down thrice, and the Australian barely could hear the bell. The first knockdown came within the opening minute of the round as Murtazaliev's relentless assault caught Tszyu off balance. Eriksson Lubin reflected on the potential matchup between himself and Tim Tszyu, saying that they had plans in place if Tszyu had won the fight. However, after Tsyu's loss to Bakhram Murtazaliev, Lubin acknowledged that things had to change. He stated that now he would have to shift his focus and aim to secure a fight with Murtazaliev instead, as the Russian champion has become the next target after his victory.
He was a champion already, so if Tim Tszyu would have beat him, then me and Tim Tszyu, we already got something planned or whatever. But now we got to move on. We got to move on and go ahead and try to get this Russian dude in there.
The second fall came at the midway point with Murtazaliev landing a brutal right hand that sent Tszyu crashing to the canvas. The third knockdown came in the final seconds of the round, leaving Tszyu battered and dazed as he fought to make it back to his corner. The crowd wondered if the fight would continue. Tim Tszyu, reflecting on his performance after the fight, admitted that he was still looking for answers after his previous loss to Sebastian Fundora. Tszyu was positive going into the fight with Murtazaliev, but things did not progress the way he had planned. He acknowledged that the result was different from what he had expected despite feeling physically prepared and confident going into the bout. He said, I was hopeful after the Fondora fight, but I got to find more answers with this one. You know, this didn't go according to plan. It was a little bit different. The loss was a crushing blow for Tszyu. Coming into the fight, he had been looking to rebuild his image after the loss to Fondor, a fight in which he had been thoroughly outboxed by the taller, longer fighter. Tszyu had expressed his frustration after that defeat, admitting that he had struggled to deal with Sebastian Fundora's height, reach, and high volume of punches. They knew the Murtazaliev fight would be important to his career, but the outcome was worse than expected. Tszyu opened up about how strong he felt during the fight training but accepted that Murtazaliev was the better fighter on the night. He credited Murtazaliev for the win and expressed an attitude of learning from the loss, stressing the importance of moving forward and improving after tough experiences in the ring. He added, "I felt unbelievable. I'll be honest with you. I felt unbelievable. I had a great prep, so he got me. Man, and he was the better man on this night. And we live and we learn." Between rounds, the ringside doctor checked on Tszyu, ensuring he was fit to progress, though he was cleared to continue. The damage had already been done. Murtazaliev's dominance had sapped Tszyu's energy and confidence. Still, the Australian showed heart, refusing to give up as he began the third round. However, it didn't take long for Murtazaliev to resume his attack. Tszyu found himself on the canvas again early in the third round, and the referee warned him that one more knockdown would force him to stop the fight, but Tszyu's corner, understanding the extent of the punishment their fighter had suffered, chose not to wait for the inevitable. Keith Thurman was reflecting on the fight, emphasizing how Murtazaliev win over Tim Tszyu validated the faith his camp had going into the bout. Thurman shared that he was confident from the time he signed the contract, stating that he didn't see anything unique or particularly challenging in Tszyu's style. He referenced Murtazaliev's similar mindset leading up to the fight, where both Murtazaliev and his trainer stated their belief that Tszyu's style was predictable and tailor-made for Murtazaliev.
Look what the left hook did, man. You know, I was obviously confident when I signed the contract. I said there's nothing special in what Tim Tszyu brings to the table. Earlier this week, because I was on the analytical side this evening, earlier this week, I got to interview all the fighters. And, you know, Bakhram clearly said that him and his trainer said that there's nothing special about Tim Tszyu, and that Tim Tszyu is just cookie cutter made for Bakhram. And not only were they able to say that, but they...
Keith Thurman continued analyzing Tszyu's mindset and approach to the fight, saying that Tszyu may have been too confident in his abilities without having a clear and adaptable strategy. He emphasized that while self-belief and skill are important, a fighter needs more than just repetition to win at the highest level. Thurman pointed out that making subtle adjustments during the fight is crucial, and Tszyu's failure to do so led to his downfall. He added, "I think Tim Tszyu, in the way that I thought he was handling my fight, was overly confident, or, believing in himself. It's fine to have skills, it's fine to have a will, but you have to have a plan. You need to be able to make subtle changes in the ring and not just do one thing over and over again." Thurman acknowledged that after 3 knockdowns, there was no real path to victory without a knockout. However, Thurman emphasized Tszyu's incredible determination and warrior-like spirit despite the devastating blows, particularly a left hook that repeatedly landed on Tszyu's temple, causing visible damage and shaking him as he fell. Tszyu continued to rise.
Obviously, the scorecards would never look good, so obviously after that 3 knockdowns, there's no way he was winning tonight without a knockout, and after the 4th knockdown, and but let's be real, the way he got up, the way he kept getting up.
Yeah, a lot of grit.
Yeah. I mean, if you know boxing, and you know that how that left hook was hitting right on the temple, and the way Tim Tszyu went down sideways, you can almost see him shaking as he's on the ground. It's almost like we can feel the reverb from the punch as a...
Thurman praised Tszyu's resilience, saying that despite his body telling him to shut down, Tszyu continued to fight even on unsteady legs before his corner threw in the towel. Tszyu tried to launch an overhand right. Thurman stressed that Tszyu's toughness and fighting spirit would be remembered as an example of true grit, making him stand out as one of the rare fighters at that level of heart.
That he's consuming that type of reverb. Everything in his body is telling his body to shut down, and he stood back up. And then as the last final, right before his coaches threw in the towel, he was on Bambi legs. He couldn't stand up right, but he still had the audacity to try to come with an overhand right. I mean, there just will not be, throughout history, there will not be many type of warriors like
Murtazaliev, who had previously won the vacant title with an 11th round TK over Jack Catterall, was eager to solidify his status in the division for Tszyu. To fight represented a chance to redeem himself after losing his WBO junior middleweight title to Sebastian Fundora earlier in the year. A win would have put him back in the mix for future title opportunities, possibly setting up unification bouts. Thurman was commenting on his pre-fight skepticism about Tim Tszyu, explaining that he wasn't sure Tszyu was as intimidating or dangerous as he was often portrayed. He pointed out that this year, with Tszyu coming to the US to face top-tier competition, has proven that stepping up to a higher level of opposition can reveal a fighter's weaknesses. He said, "I told you guys I'm not sure if he's that scary. I'm not sure if he's that dangerous, and I think I think this year of him coming over here and trying to fight the best shows that when you go from a little pool to a big pool, you're running into some big fish." Murtazaliev began the fight with an undefeated record of 22-0 and 16 knockout, known for his power and aggressive style. Tszyu, with a 24-1 record and 17 knockout, was a more technical boxer known for his precision and strategic approach. Both fighters had a high knockout rate, but Murtazaliev's power stood out after the fight. A clearly emotional Tszyu addressed the reporters flanked by his promoter, Matt Rose, and his manager, Glenn Jennings. Tsyu's mother and his Hall of Fame father, Kostya, were also in attendance, giving support during what was undoubtedly one of the lowest points of his career. Tim, holding an ice pack in his hand, was unable to offer much in the way of an excuse for his performance. When asked how he was feeling, he simply replied, "What the fuck just happened?" Twice more he was asked about the fight, and both times he replied, "I can't remember," suggesting that the damage from Murtazaliev's punches had left him disoriented. Main event commentator Ben Damon called the result unthinkable and described the fight as a monstrous upset. Murtazaliev, who had entered the fight with a 22-0 record, was still considered the underdog against the more recognizable Tszyu. Caleb Plant expressed that while the result may not have been expected, this is the nature of boxing. Plant recognized that the sport is full of unpredictability, where even the best fighters can experience both highs and lows throughout their careers. His statement reflected the fact that surprises are usual in boxing and no result is guaranteed. He said, "Not expected, but that's fighting, and that comes with a lot of highs and lows." According to CompuBox, Ben Damon's report, Murtazaliev threw 18 more punches than Tszyu in the opening round. And while Tszyu was slightly more accurate, landing 36% of his punches, Murtazaliev's relentless pressure proved too much in the second round. Murtazaliev landed 32 punches, knocking Tszyu down 3 times and sending him into survival mode. Caleb Plant was reflecting on the timing of the knockout, noting that while he expected a tough fight between the two, he didn't foresee the knockout to come as quickly or as early as it did. Plant acknowledged the skills of both fighters, knowing that it was always going to be a challenging matchup, but the speed of the finish surprised him.
Caleb, I don't think anybody gave Murtazaliev a win by knockout.
I mean, maybe not that fast and that early, so yeah. But both are great fighters, so I knew.
Andre Berto questioned the decision-making behind putting Tszyu against a tough undefeated fighter like Murtazaliev for his comeback fight. Berto hinted that this was a poor choice for Tszyu, especially coming off a previous loss. His tone suggested frustration with the handling of Tsyu's career, particularly the difficulty of the matchup. Berto tweeted, "Who in the hell's bright idea was it to match Tim Tszyu with this big-ass undefeated Russian pit bull for a comeback fight after a loss? Shaking my head, now that was just dumb." Meanwhile, Stephen Bredman Edwards took a more critical view on Tsyu's reputation and future prospects. Edwards didn't focus on the loss itself, but rather on how the defeat might affect Tsyu's standing in the eyes of future opponents. He pointed out that when a fighter like Tszyu brands himself as a destructive fighter and calls himself the soul taker, a loss like this makes it hard to keep that image. Edwards tweeted, "Tim Tszyu's career is in trouble now, and it's not the loss. If you're a man, you can come back from a loss, now no opponent will respect him. When you pride yourself as a destructive fighter, he calls himself the Soul Taker. Few fighters of his ilk can handle that. As the dust settles on this intense fight, the real question from fans and analysts alike is where does Tim Tszyu go from here with such a crushing defeat and questions surrounding his future? Can he rise again to prove his doubters wrong, or has this fight marked a turning point in his career that will be hard to come back from? If you've liked this breakdown and want to stay updated with all the latest boxing news, predictions, and analysis, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts on what's next for Tim Tszyu.